Welcome back to From the Machine, podcast that now has a name.
Is that the full working title right there?
Yeah. The subtitle.
Yeah.
Anyone check out the two excerpts currently on YouTube?
Yes.
I'm halfway through the most recent one.
I haven't, but I've seen them on the drive.
Hey, we got visuals now. It's just your picture tacked to a tree.
Sweet.
It's a good picture.
I like trees.
It's like,
Me too.
I think it's a drawing of the four-piece lineup, but it's abstract enough that it can theoretically be any four people.
I figured it was the band. Yeah.
The one I did on cardboard?
Mm-hmm.
That was y'all and Jason Ronan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah. Zach, Connor, Agis, Jason, in that order from left to right.
Oh. Hell yeah. Yeah, I thought this one was you with the skull mask.
I did too.
Oh, no. That was from my perspective sitting on the red couch while y'all were at the bar. Music is cool. Art is cool. And speaking of which...
One of the things that was interesting listening to the records, I'd heard all the singles mostly a couple times, and so I had like the melodies in my head. I knew generally how the songs were, and they're good songs. They're catchy. And then the level of detail, focused listening in my studio with a decent sound system, it's entirely different experience. I think one of the things about pop music that appeals to me is that it works on different levels, microscopic and macroscopic. The best pop song is one that you can hum, you can think about, and it like wants to stay in your memory. It demands attention, and that's the macro level. But also on the micro level, texture, production, mood, just these small details make it worth listening to over and over again. It's not like it gets stuck in your head and it's annoying, because it's so rich, it's so dynamic. This applies with artwork too. This is something Zach's talked about, is some of the best artwork is the stuff that looks great from far away, and then as you get closer, there's just more to it. My struggle, I've done a couple album reviews for Music Scene Media, and I think the struggle is you can't skim music. You're kind of constrained. You need to listen to it all the way through if you're going to get anything out of it. And that's why, a lot of music criticism tends to focus a lot on lyrics, or in like classical and jazz, they'll just read sheet music, because that is something you can skim. It's also, especially in pop music, the most boring part is just reading the lyrics or the sheet music, because it's a lot about, again, texture, mood, production.
Yeah, that's why listening to an album all the way through is often a struggle for me. Because it's not that I don't want to listen to it, it's that I don't want to listen to it not in an ideal state. So it's like, that's why I haven't listened to a lot of the Beatles albums or Beach Boys, because I know the exact, particular vibe I need to have to go listen to those. And I just haven't been in that situation yet. And I want to appreciate this. And then last night listening to some of them, I'm like, oh, these are some songs right here. There's so much going on. And yeah, the layers and textures, which the texture, I think the specific thing, they know they're making a recording and they're going to utilize that recording.
Yeah, especially the ideal state for these albums in particular, I think is, you're supposed to listen to it on acid. This is not necessarily the origins, but the popularization of psychedelic music, which, as a term, it can mean a lot of things. I've heard it used to reference music that is created on psychedelics or conceived on psychedelics. It can also mean stuff that's designed to evoke the psychedelic experience, or stuff that you're supposed to listen to on psychedelics to get the most out of the music.
Which form do you think has the most utility in forming a headspace?
I think I'm most attracted to the kind of music that imitates the psychedelic experience or can make you feel like you're on psychedelics when you're not. Because usually that, I think, is equally enjoyable in any sort of state. But it's also theoretically interesting just as how can you capture this idea and translate like just a different state of your brain into production.
And the psychedelics inherently make it a little more difficult because they take you to almost a childlike state. So you're seeing a lot and a lot of things and thinking a lot of things that you can't normally. And then trying to put that on paper or on recording so that people who aren't on psychedelics can understand it can be a hurdle that I think some people don't approach properly. The tricky part is there's no tried and true way to approach it because of the different representation.
And at this point, a lot of the time, the lazy way to imitate psychedelics now is to imitate Sgt. Pepper.
Flange.
Yeah, flanger, chorus, some funky reverb, and it's like a stand-in for what psychedelics are supposed to be. By their nature, the psychedelic experience is something that sort of defies language, defies how we normally look at the world. And it's interesting that music is one way you can translate that, like recreating auditory hallucinations on recording.
Well, yeah, because music is physical. That's why you can make psychedelic visualizers. But if you don't have music that's going along with them, then yeah, it really doesn't do that much for you. But music is, sound waves, physical changes in the air, so you can feel it. And that's also the root of why music is just a very fun and interesting medium to explore like various different states. I'm gonna stay with visuals though, because music is hard.
Music kind of scary.
So many layers to it.
Would anybody sitting here happen to know how much music has been made to induce bad trips?
I know one band.
I was gonna say I know one EP. Actually, there is. The EDM artist, Sudden Death, purposely, is to have bad trips. That's how he was introduced to me. Of someone telling me, they had a bad time at a festival because they were vibing, and then this one dude came on. He was wearing a skull mask with antlers and a trench coat with straps, and his visualizers were just really abrasive. Yeah. I like that whole concept of the alternate end of what people try to achieve, because even if you're listening to it not tripping, it invokes that kind of cosmic scariness.
And what did you say the name of that artist was again?
Sudden Death, but the U is a V.
In terms of talking about psychedelic music, and if we are going to use these records as a reference, what is it that makes these records truly psychedelic, aside from the people who were on psychedelics when they were making it? And it was, if you say it's designed to listen to on psychedelics, aside from that, what is it in the music that makes it psychedelic? I know. I wanna see you guys.
So, my main thing that is just texture and depth. Kind of like we were talking about with visual art. You can look at for an extended period of time and notice new things. And the production in a lot of these has a lot of attention to very small things that you normally wouldn't really pay that much attention to. And then a lot of complexity in how it's instrumentated and just weird things happening.
That makes sense. For me, it's sort of an uncanniness. Music that almost makes sense, but there's something in it that throws you for a loop. So subversion of expectations is a big thing, but also the way the artist uses mood and uses sound to play with mood. I think Day in the Life is probably a very straightforward example, like orchestral breaks where it's the big upward movement. It's a very anxious feeling, and it's something that, from a songwriting perspective, doesn't necessarily make sense. From a usual pop production perspective, it doesn't make sense. But if you're treating the album as an experience, and it's got these breaks of just like anxious tension. One characteristic of the psychedelic experience is usually synesthesia, sound blending into sight, blending into touch. And this is around the time people started paying attention to album art. As a consumer, you'll show up to a store, you'll get the album, you'll take it home. And usually, album art was just to signal what kind of music it is. They'll have a picture of the band on it so you can tell it's the Beatles right away. But sort of the idea that musicians started getting into at this time is it can also be something that when you put it on your record player, you have a visual to look at while you're listening to the album. And just like a cue for how to interpret the music through the visuals. So Revolver, very psychedelic album cover. It's got the faces blending into each other, fractaling, and if you're listening to it on acid or not on acid, the image you're looking at informs how you think about the music.
Yeah, I mean that, and I mean with those specific kinds of arts, with a lot more like, not detail, but like busyness, you get to just get endlessly lost in it to an extent. Which I know that's a thing Ethan and I enjoy doing greatly when we draw, is just endless looking ability.
The art of mindless drawing.
Oh yeah.
I think it helps kind of tie into the whole thing as not being just music, but letting you know that this is art, you know? Where the accompanying picture is true art, and the music is true art. It lets you know this is serious. This is serious music.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a total experience.
Yeah.
It's not just something that gets played on the radio.
Yeah, if you can't handle this imagery, then you probably can't handle this record. Or if you don't appreciate the imagery, you're not going to appreciate this record as much. You got to be able to disassociate a certain extent, at least with a lot of like the nicer the soundscapes that I was hearing. But also, I mean, disassociate / get really focused. It's like that like nice spot that
It's sort of like the meditative state of relaxed focus.
Yeah.
Where you're not bringing your bias into what you're focusing on.
Yeah.
Just letting experience happen and appreciating the materiality of life.
You gotta get a little bit lost sometimes in the sauce.
True.
I turned away from Pet Sounds for the longest time because the album cover was stupid.
It's
like the worst album cover ever. And that's but it wasn't billed as a psychedelic record, you know. It was conceived on psychedelics, sure, but it was still produced as a pop record because they were a pop band, and under the rule of Capitol, they didn't have all the say. So it's like, oh, it's Pet Sounds. Have you guys feed some goats? And it's a complete. In that case, you really can't judge the book by its cover. You gotta separate it.
There were way fewer sounds of pets than I was expecting.
No, there's more pet sounds on the Smile sessions. I think it was just a lady that they were friends with on Barnyard? And it's just like, just make a bunch of animal noises. So it's literally just this lady just making a bunch of noises.
You gotta bring the animals into the studio. Have their mic time.
That's what psychedelics are for.
I want a hedgehog up in the booth.
going real fast.